he just he is just such an old fuddy-duddy. I am so disgusted. But when I think about a director who has very specific visions, he definitely has a type.
We cover all the pop culture news here on Earth, all the way out to the Gamma Quadrant. This is Rob from Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and you're listening to Talk Talk Punch. It's the Mount Rushmore of movie directors. Welcome to another episode of Talk Talk Punch. Thank you so much to both our audio podcast and our YouTube viewers for joining us. I am Brody, joined by Tudong Dylan.
Hey.
And the Mysterio of this Sinister Six, Charlie.
How's it going?
You're so mysterious, Charlie. That's why I gave you Mysterio over all the other ones.
I am an international man of mystery. It is true.
Well, if you haven't already, we'd love it if you subscribe so that way you can come back here every Wednesday to hang out with us and have some fun, just like this episode's going to be. We've never done this before, so this is a new format that we're trying out, and we thought, you know what? Well, I don't know. Maybe you guys encounter this topic more. I'm a big professional wrestling fan, and this seems to come up a lot on who is the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestlers. Maybe it's wider known in sports and other things. I just know professional wrestling.
Presidents, even, there's
something like that. All right. Well, let's go right over to our screen here. We're going to go over our picks. We're going to talk about kind of our process and what led us to pick the people that we picked. Charlie, how about we start with you?
This was an agonizing exercise, and look. All right, I've lived many lifetimes within my life, and I think that that's probably, if the older you get, that's a statement that probably if we unpack it a little bit more, you'll be able to relate to. If you asked me this question in my 20s, I would have had a very different answer than I would have had in my 30s, and then a different answer than I have today. And part of that's just age, time, wisdom, whatever it may be. Reflecting on just what impact directors have had on me personally, as well as kind of scoping out and caring a little bit more maybe about what impact they've had on other directors and the love of cinema. Look, my list is very chalk. It is chalk. It is one away from the AI, and it's only one away from the AI because I specifically put David Lynch on my list because I wanted to have something that was different than chalk. I just wanted to talk about David Lynch. I don't think he belongs in the Mount Rushmore of directors. He's on the Mount Rushmore of directors in my hearts, but I'm not going to try to convince you guys that he's one of the best 4 of all time because there's just not enough depth to his work. If we're comparing masterpiece to masterpiece, maybe David Lynch can go toe-to-toe. If we're comparing innovation and storytelling and just sheer weirdness, maybe we can get him on the list. But man, he quit making movies in 2006 and is just like never going to make another one. He said, "I'm never making another movie ever again," and he is stuck to that, and it is a heartbreak. Man, if you've never seen some of David Lynch's catalog, it is well worth watching. It's a little confusing, but he has this ability to make you feel a story. He doesn't just tell you a story; he makes you feel a story. And so, in the midst of the confusion, he has this masterful ability to kind of make you feel along the way and resonate. Long after the movie's over, you're still thinking about it. But enough about the guy that's not going to be on Mount Rushmore. Let's talk about the shock here. You can see we all got Spielberg, so big shock. Yeah, Spielberg. We got 2 glasses here. We got Scorsese over there. Look at him. Look how angry he is about Marvel. He's looking down at this. He hates this podcast. He's like, how come you don't talk about The Irishman? You never talk about The Irishman. Got Kurosawa over there, and we'll talk more about him because he's just maybe the greatest director of all time. Certainly, this is where it gets interesting. Maybe like the difference between like greatness and influence. Just maybe the most influential. Steven Spielberg himself. If you're a fan of Steven Spielberg, we can thank Kurosawa. And speaking of influential, Alfred Hitchcock is one of the most influential directors of all time. And when we start talking about narrowing this list down, I will be a little bit more impassioned in my defense of Hitchcock if you guys try to knock him off the 4. But he definitely belongs. Look at that face. Look, that's made for stone right there.
It's true.
That's a quick peek behind the curtain of
Yeah,
my
and
picks.
I do want to add just, you know, uh for our video people, they can see it, but for our audio listeners, we are adding AI kind of into the mix here. I went into
Hmm.
Chat GPT and I said, "Hey, Chat GPT, I need 5 directors that would be on Mount Rushmore, and who would it be?" And this is who they gave us. Luckily, um,
Yeah.
every person that the AI said is on one of our lists. And so we don't actually need to dedicate much time into explaining their list because you will hear about them in our various lists. So there's that in
Yeah.
case anybody was confused why Charlie was talking about AI. All right,
Yeah. I do think
Tudong.
Kubrick is the right answer if I was taking a test, but I'm going with Lynch.
Tudong, how about your list?
Well, I mean, hey, I graduated with Steven Spielberg from Cal State Long Beach. I walked with him, so
Did
he
you
had to
really?
be on there. Yeah, actually, I really did. He was in the film department. I was in the theater, so he was ahead of us. But I mean, he was there. So I didn't. I wasn't like walking with him or anything. But yeah, no, he actually did that. 2002 it was really
Huh.
cool. Um, I mean, hey, just like one of his first, like you get, just if you're gonna take Jaws, genius, and I love how he has to handle diversity. Um, he consistently puts out movies. Like a lot of the people on my list consistently put out movies because there's directors who who just want to be celebrities, like Quentin Tarantino. He did 10 movies, and like Hitchcock did, and I mean he's not on my list. I'm flabbergasted that Kubrick and Hitchcock are not on my list. I don't know what happened,
I really
but I mean,
thought Hitchcock was going to be on your list. I was
yeah, I really did
convinced.
too. It's true. I was shocked, but I didn't even think about him because I was thinking Kurosawa because he is a absolute genius, and all of these people on my list have pumped out movies. They want to get their stories out there. Uh, Steven Spielberg has put out movie after movie. Kurosawa, I mean, he's famous for his samurai movies, but he has done other movies that were at the time they were modern, like High and Low. Absolutely genius, working with the genius Toshiro Mifune. Martin Scorsese, although he is just such an old fuddy duddy. I am so disgusted. But when I think about a director who has very specific visions, he definitely has a type. His movies, when he is on point, Raging Bull, Casino, Goodfellas, unbelievable. Cape Fear, he has unbelievable style. And speaking of style, Christopher Nolan, the youngest on this list, who is, I mean, most of these are still working except for Akira Kurosawa. Even Clint Eastwood pumps out movies. Now, I put him on the list not only because I like his kind of easygoing style, but I also was like, you know what? I love the fact that he kind of to me represents one of the better case scenarios of an actor and director. And he's been in more movies that he's directed than movies he hasn't directed. Um, I don't know what that actually says about that, but I mean, like, I think that a lot of the stuff he did, when he did Unforgiven, is a classic, and as well as even The Bridges of Madison County. I thought his acting and wait, yeah, he did direct that. I thought it was fantastic. Christopher Nolan is like he's turning into like a modern like genius, like with masterpiece after masterpiece, and with his technical the techniques that he's using is just unbelievable. Like Dunkirk wasn't that no. Which was the one he did with it was like one shot? Was that wasn't Dunkirk? No, that wasn't him. That was another director completely. But a lot of the stuff that he's doing, he's innovated a lot of IMAX cameras, that kind of a thing. And Dark Knight alone is absolutely fantastic.
I think Dunkirk does have some large one shot
Yeah, I'm
scenes.
yeah. But I mean, like he loves doing longer takes. He loves practical stuff, like in the Dark Knight when they flipped that truck, they flipped that truck. They did not. That wasn't like CG, and I really appreciate it. In Dark Knight Rises when that plane fell onto like I don't know the ground, the meadow or whatever they were doing. Like that actually happened. I love the fact that he loves film and he wants to keep it right there, nice and practical. When a lot of people are just CGIing it, and it looks horrible.
All right. Well, I probably have the most different Yeah, I cross over with everybody, but that's really because I have Steven Spielberg, who is
Oh yeah.
just like the greatest of all time. Because, uh, like the first things that I go to are like Jurassic Park, right? And just I think I built my list based on influential, like how, like what filmmakers have sort of shaped the film industry into what it is today. And so you'll see, I'll talk about like specifically like technology a lot because I think that some of my picks
Hmm.
have sort of used that, and I think Spielberg did that with Jurassic Park. You know, we had these full CGI models that nobody had ever
Yeah.
seen before.
And animatronic. He used animatronic too.
Yeah, he did. He mixed them both, and I think he's just like amazing. I have Stanley Kubrick because I've talked about like, oh, I took a Stanley Kubrick class in college, which like I like Stanley Kubrick, so I took a Stanley Kubrick class where we watched all of his
Yeah.
films and I wrote papers and research stuff and just going through his catalog, stuff like 2001, being the space
Mm.
sci-fi nut that I am, it's it's wild to watch a movie like that and be like, oh my goodness, I can see every other sci-fi movie that's come out since then has had been influenced by Stanley Kubrick's 2001, and that's just one of them. We've got The Shining, we've got Clockwork Orange, like so many just iconic movies. I have Jim Cameron just because,
Mm.
things, when I think about movies and where we've come to, I think about, you know, the guys like James Cameron who are out there like creating tech. And
Yeah.
I enjoy the Avatar movies. I get that they're not everybody's liking, but like the tech that went into making those are fascinating. And the fact that like the second one took so long because he's like, I need to create new technology, like is really amazing, and I love his movies. I love, the franchises that he's gone through, Terminator
Mm.
and Alien, I love, Abyss. It's just there's so much there that I think he has contributed to.
Don't
I
forget
also
about True Lies.
True Lies, just like amazing movies. I do have Peter Jackson. He's not on anybody else's list, but it's hard for me as such a big Lord of the Rings fan to not watch those movies and be like, there is something really special. And like he hasn't made a whole lot of movies. I went to check like his filmography, and it's like Lord of the Rings and King Kong and like Dead Alive, like some really small random ones, but it's like
Frighteners.
just having the Lord of the Rings in there and the things that he did, and like
Mm.
starting Weta and the impact that Weta has had on the film industry since then is it just like if anything, I'm like, granted, he's probably not going to make it on the Mount Rushmore, but I want to shout him out.
He's a very honorable mention.
Yeah. And then Christopher Nolan, who is my favorite director. He's directed Interstellar, that's my favorite movie of all
Yep.
time. He's directed the Dark Knight stuff. He
Mm.
he loves that practical stuff. I'm fascinated by the way that he makes movies. I'm fascinated by the movies that he makes, in that I'm thinking about them and trying to figure them out. And yes, they're kind of confusing, but like there's so much to them. And
Yeah.
they're not these small like little art house movies either. Like he's making summer blockbusters that are at
Yeah.
such high quality. And so I was like, oh, he's got to be on there. So there's my five. They won't all make it on, but I got it. I love them.
I agree.
All
Highly
right,
agree.
and then just to kind of go through them, the AI's picks. They have AI. I call them they. I don't know. AI. It's picks. Alfred Hitchcock, Steven Spielberg,
Kurosawa.
Kurosawa, Martin Scorsese, and Stanley Kubrick. So crossed over with all of us, but it means we came up with some pretty good picks.
Yeah. Surprised it
All
didn't
right.
have Nolan though.
I mean, it's got a pretty like it's pulling from all over the internet, right? So like
True, true.
anytime there's a list, it's going to be pulling stuff. And these 5 are pretty like legendary.
Yeah,
I mean,
true. Very true.
All right, now we get to do the fun part. Now we get to argue.
now, yeah, we gotta fight for these. So we've got our Mount Rushmore here. We're just gonna be dropping heads, man. Dropping heads on these
Nice.
heads. Okay, so I think to start out, it's pretty fair to say that Steven Spielberg is gonna make it onto Mount Rushmore, right?
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah.
He's he's everywhere on every list. We'll put him over George Washington. I'm even gonna try to like scale it correctly. Flip it. That's all right.
This is lovely.
All right. Next up, who's next to go on Mount Rushmore?
Well, I mean, Scorsese is on 3 out of 4 lists. But then again, so is Akira Kurosawa.
It's true.
Why? Hey, why not both?
I,
Oh, come on. He's not
my
either
hands
one
are
of those guys.
tied.
I
My
mean,
hands are tied.
Scorsese's. I think I
He's got a
struggle with
very.
Scorsese.
Is it just because he hates Marvel? Because you shouldn't. You should be
No.
looking at his
No,
directing.
no. Not just because he hates Marvel. I don't know. I mean,
You don't know? Haven't you seen Goodfellas? Raging
I have
Bull?
seen Goodfellas. I've
Casino?
seen Casino. Yeah. I never saw The Irishman.
Maybe that's a good thing.
Like
Hey, the parts of it are
he
really
did
good.
Departed also, right?
Oh yeah. Oh, that was excellent.
The color of money is fantastic. The
Yes.
last
I never
station
saw
of
that.
Christ, Cape Fear. I mean, like just
Cape Fear's
his
classic.
his filmography is really impressive. And I do want to say, and not just to you, Brody, but to everyone out there, if you're trying to do an exercise like this, there's got to be part of you that's able to divorce your preferences from like recognition
true.
of greatness.
No, it's true.
And so like, and that was hard for me. That was hard for me in this exercise because it's like there's directors whose films that I gravitate towards because they're more my style or more things that I enjoy. But that doesn't mean that they're the best. It's just preference. I always look at things through a music lens because that's kind of like my world. And it's like if you do like a best artist of the 80s or something like that or 90s, whatever it may be, those lists are always ridiculous and hard because you're trying to compare, pop and rap and rock and all these different musical
Yeah.
genres and styles, and it's really hard sometimes to compare a movie that James Cameron did with a movie that Martin Scorsese did because they're just different, completely different worlds of storytelling. But man, Scorsese's a director's director. I'm going to butcher the quote here because I don't have it in front of me. But Brian De Palma was making Scarface, and Raging Bull came out, and he's talking about how he's like, oh, just go check this out, like during the making Scarface, and he just sits down and he's watching just the opening sequence, and his like jaw drops, and he's just like, even no matter how good you are, there's always Martin Scorsese to remind you that there's still more work to be done. And he's like in the middle of Scarface, making Scarface, and he's like, "Oh, come on, man." And Raging Bull, I mean, just like shot for shot, it's just such a like. Look, if you've never seen it, you should watch it. The art of filmmaking, I think, is something that I used to really be drawn to in my movie watching, and it is not something that I'm drawn to as much in my older age. I'm like, all right, I want the popcorn flicks. I want to be entertained. Give me something a little bit lighter. So it's the end of a long day. Give me something I can scroll my phone while it's on in the background and still enjoy. I'm not looking for the juxtaposition of light and shadow and the depth of field between two different characters and look at the framing of the shot. I appreciate that stuff, but it doesn't like get me as excited as it used to, like in my youth, where I'm like, oh my god, did you see that still shot and Raiders where the sunset's coming down? Did you see that framing? Oh what a shot, and it's like, oh, I gotta talk to my friends about that. I gotta pause this. I'm so excited. Now I'm like, oh yeah, that was cool. Good on you. You're an artist. Way to go, Scorsese. I've never watched The Irishman, but way to go.
Okay, so do
King
we
of
put
comedy? Oh, what a list!
Oh yeah.
what?
Mean
Road.
Streets?
He's got the king of comedy.
Oh, see, I haven't seen that one.
These are really great movies, bro. Like these are the kinds you should actually seek out.
I know.
They're really,
Well, and
really good.
They're all sad. They're not like uplifting, happy movies, and so there's not normally stuff that like I don't know.
Hey,
It's you want to know
Color
what's
of
really
Money's
funny?
happy.
Oh, well, yeah. It's hopeful. That's true. I remember I was
Hey,
watching
thank
The
you.
Departed. I was watching The Departed, bro, and I think I text Charlie. I was like, "Well, this is fantastic. Oh, you got to watch it." And he's like, "Oh, it's part of the Suicide Collection, huh?" And I was like, "No, no, no, it's good." And then I finished it, and I was like, "All right, maybe it is a part of
That's
the
right.
Suicide Collection."
That's right. I forgot
I was
that they
like, "I
used to
take it
call
back."
your movie collection the Suicide Collection. Yeah, you
Yeah,
always said
yeah.
everything you had was so sad, man.
I was like, "This is one that's not on there. It's great." And I'm watching. I'm like, "Oh, jeez." I was like, "Yeah, no, deserves Suicide Collection. It's sad, but it's so good, bro." You've
I-
seen The Departed,
I've
right?
seen. I've seen. Yes, I saw Departed. Yes. Okay, so it sounds like we have to put Scorsese on them.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about have to, but I guess it's a good idea.
I think he deserves it. I mean, hey, we can always see if somebody else deserves it more.
Yeah.
Okay.
Temporary,
So, but
temporary.
but here's my concern now as I'm looking at my list and I'm like, oh, but I want Nolan on there, but Kubrick should be on there.
Let's talk about Nolan because I love Christopher Nolan. I think he's incredibly talented, and I think he's part of a really great group of direct like David Fincher and Paul Thomas Anderson, Wes Anderson if you're into his thing. There's like a group of like modern directors that I think the Coen brothers that are just
Oh yeah.
fantastic directors, but they're also just like young and still making movies. If we had done this list in like the 90s, Tim Burton would have been like immediately on all of our minds as like this amazing young maverick innovative filmmaker who's doing things that no one's ever done before, and look
Sure.
at his unique voice. And now I don't know if any of us even considered him, but he's nowhere
I
near our list. It's like,
I
gosh,
can I considered him and it broke my heart to not have him. But I was like, yeah, if this was 20 years ago, absolutely. But
Yeah. I
time
mean,
changes opinions, man, and we got to give these movies time to be evaluated years after. Looking back, there's going to be 20 years from now, people are going to look back at The Dark Knight and they're going to say that was an amazing film. Or maybe 20 years from now, people are like, wow, that movie is like really not what it, who knows what people are going to think. I think they'll think it's great because I think it's great, but who knows what 20 years from now people will think of some of these films. We've had a chance to live with these older directors whose influence can be seen readily
mhm.
in directors like Christopher Nolan and Fincher and others.
Right,
And
right.
you can see the ripple effect of their careers. Scorsese, even as he's still working, he's a director's director, and you can see the influence that he's having just ripple throughout Hollywood. Whereas Nolan, it's like it's awesome what he's doing, and if we were
Yeah.
doing a Mount Rushmore of like who's up and coming, like who are the best, I put him
sure.
on my list with a silver bullet, but I don't know if I can make him an all timer already. If he stops making movies
Mm,
tomorrow, then he's
yeah.
got what like he's got a handful of really great masterpieces, but he's not going to have the depth of a career some of these other guys that are up here. So that would just be
E-
my argument.
Doggone
I
you,
have to
Charlie. He's my
I have
favorite
to admit,
director,
bro,
and you're convincing me to not put him on the Mount Rushmore.
Tim Burton used
I
to be your
love
favorite
him. I love
director.
him.
And you
Used to
you
be.
didn't even put him on there, bro. And I didn't even consider him. Because when was the last time he made a good movie? A
Big
good
Fish.
movie.
Big Fish.
Big
Oh my
Fish was a long
gosh.
time ago.
Oh, bro. Oh,
What?
bro. Yeah, that's true. I mean, you're right. You're absolutely right.
But it was 20 years
When
ago.
was that 2005?
I, I think it was older than that. I
2003.
want to say like
Tim
03.
Burton actually stopped making movies before David Lynch did in 2006, and he's just like,
Oh, wow. Oh,
Oh.
poor
oh,
Tim Burton.
bro.
Tim Burton's at home watching this right now, like catching strays, and he's like, "Hey, what do I do? I'm great. Did you see Beetlejuice?"
No, no,
Beetlejuice
no.
2?
He's sitting there saying, "I'm very misunderstood." That's what Tim Burton's doing. I've got a bit of tea and I'm misunderstood. He's still
is,
misunderstood.
is that what he sounds like?
That's what I always hear.
No, he
That's what I
doesn't
always hear.
sound
When I
like
think of
that
Tim
at
Burton, I'm
all.
like, I'm misunderstood.
That is a spot on Tim Burton impression if I've ever heard one. He's always had that little Mrs. Doubtfire vibe to him when he talks.
Exactly. That's what I was
Yeah.
channeling.
All right. Well, Charlie, you've convinced me as much as it annoys me that yes, maybe we'll need to do a up and coming directors or something like
That'd be
that.
a fun. That'd be a
You
fun
know,
list. That would be
It really
another
would.
fun
That would.
discussion.
you know,
There's some
like
great. There's some great
directors
directors
of
coming out.
Mm.
directors of this
era.
millennium or something like that.
Oh, millennia. That's good.
Yeah. I mean, I left
People
I
like
left
post
still
2000, like who has had the most influence
yeah.
and the most power
Nice.
post 2000?
Yeah, that's
We could
good.
kind of go decade by decade. It'd be fun to talk about like best direct. I mean, like Spike Lee and Quentin Tarantino. I think we're born,
Yeah,
like that era of directors. It'd be fun to kind of do some cross comparisons. I left Francis Ford Coppola off my list, and that kind of
Yeah,
pained me a little bit. Because
yeah,
his movies are like the good ones are just masterpieces,
sure, sure.
but
yes,
there's just not a lot of them. Like he just
yeah.
but man, The Godfather's just and Apocalypse Now. I mean, what a
Hmm.
what a if you're talking just the hits. Woo.
Very nice. Yeah.
All right, so who's next to go up then?
Well,
So,
since the
so
Akira Kurosawa has 3 out of 4, why don't we discuss him for a little bit?
okay.
Road.
So
Yeah,
he's not on my list because I just haven't seen any of his movies. I have
Still,
multiple movies right now on my watch list, like to watch, but
which you haven't watched yet.
which I haven't watched. Man, it's hard to sit down and like
And watch a
have a
3 hour
movie
samurai movie.
that you need to like focus on, and it's not even so much
You
that like
do.
there's subtitles, but like you have to focus. Like I can't be doing anything else. I have to focus and like sit down and watch this full movie.
Let me tell you something though, bro. Let me tell you, like this focus. I know that it's one of those where you're like, yeah, I kind of want to watch it in the background, but that focus is going to pay off because his movies are genius. When he did Rashomon, that, like I said, it created the best foreign film category in the Oscars. When he did Seven Samurai, he wrote I don't know, like a huge essay on every single character, even all the villagers. And it started, and there's been so many remakes, even though for some reason people like to make them more of a comedy, like Seven Samurai. They then they like they basically had like the village was it was about it's going to be once they're the I'm sorry, the farmers of the village there, once their crops like come into season, these bandits are going to go and just completely decimate them. So they go out to get warriors that'll help them, and they're samurais, and they get 7 of them, obviously. And so like they've influenced other movies. They've influenced like The Three Amigos. They've influenced A Bug's Life. And if you can influence Pixar, that's about as high up as you can get.
Well, and like
Influential.
isn't
Oh, and like Yojimbo, they did A Fistful of Dollars and
Yojimbo's
Bruce
good.
Willis's what was that? Last Man Standing.
well, and wasn't Magnificent Seven like
Yeah, that was supposed to be the Seven
I mean
Samurai
sort of
also.
a heavy
It was a total
inspiration.
remake. It
You
was a
know,
total remake, yeah. A,
Hidden
a cowboy
Fortress,
remake.
I know
Hidden
was a
Fortress,
huge
Star Wars, baby.
Star
inspiration for
Wars.
Star Wars. It's like
I love George Lucas. If you see him talk about it, he's like, "Oh, the only thing," because people are like, it basically rips it off completely. It's like, "Oh, well, just these 2 characters are like the 2 droids and all that," and you're like, "No." Have you watched The Hidden Fortress? It's not even close. There's a princess. There's somebody protecting the princess. There's
Yeah.
another person, and it's like, "Hey, don't be on the dark side. Join us instead." And he turns. He basically had the entire trilogy handed to him with The Hidden Fortress, which is why he's not on this
Yep.
list.
Everyone,
and
not to keep bringing music up, but that just reminds me of like when Vanilla Ice was in the court hearing for his plagiarism of the Queen song Under Pressure, and
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
he's like, no. Their bass line goes like dun 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 dun, and mine's like dun 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 ching. That's a great video clip if you're in the video, look it up. He's like trying to sing the difference, and it's like a ding at the end. No, mine goes ding. Yeah,
so I mean, yeah.
I think like I
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Charlie.
No, I think like with older directors, it's interesting because like there's gonna be this is a whole different conversation. I don't want to derail what we're doing here. But whether it's music or art or acting or directing or whatever the medium is, at some point you're weighing the influence of who came before versus like the way that that's evolved and the people that have come since and done it maybe even better, and like what's more impactful, like the art form that's like evolved and become more modern and improved, or like the person who originated the art form and is kind of like like at what point do we cross that line and lean more towards one or the other. Spielberg is kind of like, credited with inventing the summer blockbuster. He kind of
Yeah.
really is like that next wave of like Kurosawa,
Hmm.
like that kind of like
Yeah.
it's where does that needle like lean and stuff? It's interesting. But I mean, even like when we talk about Hitchcock in a bit or Kurosawa, like the storytelling, we think of them as so like they're so ingrained in pop culture that it just
Mm.
doesn't seem like a big deal that these were the stories that were being told at the time they were being told. But they at the time they weren't. It's like we talked in this podcast before of trying to like feel like who was the first guy to hear a knock knock joke and just like, oh, like it's amazing. That's the best joke I ever heard. Like that's hilarious. I've never. What kind of joke is that? Knock knock joke. Oh man, that's wild. Everything has like an origin story where it was like the first time anyone had ever heard the story or the joke or whatever it may be. Kurosawa and Hitchcock, man, what
Mm.
amazing out of the box storytelling they did at the time that they did it. So I don't want to lose track of that because by today's standards, it's like whatever, boring.
Now
Well,
see, I agree to a point, but I do think that in most of Hitchcock and definitely a lot of Kurosawa, I do think it kind of holds up. It's difficult for me to think that
Oh, it
the
holds up for sure.
Magnificent Seven is any way better than Seven Samurai. I don't think it's better in any possible way. I love A Bug's Life, but is it as good as Seven Samurai? I mean, like, is like I mean, okay, I will admit, maybe um, Fistful of Dollars. I'm not saying it's as good as Yojimbo, but it definitely also has its origins, even though it completely rips it off. And even they even like sued him for it, and the director of that was actually really proud. And you know what? If Kurosawa like sued me, I'd kind of be proud too. And it's funny because
Yay!
like
I made
Spielberg
it.
and Martin Scorsese actually helped because a lot of the like Kurosawa didn't continue making movies in Japan because they were like, your stuff is not, it's too epic. Make him smaller, make him like leaner and all that. So he went to other countries and he couldn't get things made. And Spielberg and Scorsese, and I think it was, and of course, I think Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas who ripped him off even more also like helped him like to get his things made. So it's so funny how like you were saying like Spielberg and like Scorsese are right in that era of like when he was even there. Like they were the up and comers and they were still
Yeah.
helping him out. But it's so good. He was
Yeah, oh,
supposedly the first director to point the camera at the sun. Sure, I read that. I don't know if
I
that's
do want to clarify. I do want to clarify, sorry, real quick, bro. I just want to clarify. I'm not saying that their movies are boring by today's standards. I'm just saying like the innovation of the actual storytelling
oh,
is no
sure.
mm,
longer like
yeah,
wouldn't be appreciated by modern
that's true.
audience who's
Yeah, that's
Sure.
true.
like if you're watching Hitchcock's Rear Window and you're like, "Oh, I've seen this. The Simpsons did a parody of this and Family Guy did
Right.
a parody of this and that 70s show did a parody of this." And I was in Psych and you're like it's like running through a list of pop culture things that have referenced it and told similar stories or isn't that Shia LaBeouf movie it's like
Disturbia.
uh,
Yeah, and I think
sorry.
Kurosawa,
But
I think even though I haven't seen his movies, I think just the fact that I can name off a number of his movies and the things that have been influenced by his movies says something as well. That
I agree.
I can recognize that. So, all right, well, he is on 3 lists, so I guess we're bringing Kurosawa in.
For now, at least. For
I mean,
now.
and he's like look how well he blends in with the
Yeah.
black and white photo. I mean, that's like
Perfect.
meant to be.
Now, Charlie, just because Alfred Hitchcock is the same shade of gray and facing the correct direction does
That's
not mean
true.
he's automatically on Mount Rushmore. Because I know you're going to
Feel
make
like
that
it's
argument.
automatic. It doesn't matter what work he's done over 45 years of making amazing films, but his profile fits the photo, and he's black and white. We gotta put him up there. That's Lincoln right there, baby.
I,
Oh man. Okay,
I like
well,
that. If this is the case, then all of yours are from your list, except for David Lynch. Is
except
on
for David Lynch.
Charlie's is the most accurate on here.
Well, look, you guys don't have to put Hitchcock on, but I would probably argue Hitchcock over some of the people that we have on the list
It's
already
true.
if we
That's
weren't
true.
going to put Hitchcock on. I don't think we can overstate the influence that he's had on cinema and I just the
Sure.
kind of movies that he and the hits that he put out like year after year. And
Mhm.
look,
And
the
so many
the I
movies.
was
Yeah.
so many and just
So
oh
many
my god, like
movies.
and just there was like a 3-year run where he just put out like masterpiece, masterpiece, masterpiece
Yeah.
with like Vertigo and just like the his catalog is just and he had a style and he just did it and he just kept
Yeah.
Did.
doing it and he kept making movies in the same genre that were new and unique and just like the imagine being able to do that. I mean, it's like Marvel hasn't been
Yeah.
able to pull that off. It's like we're kind of all tired of the formula. But Hitchcock, man, he could just 45 years of making the same genre of film and just constantly surprising the audience and doing it beautifully shot. His use. Oh man, the depth of
It's
field, the
true.
music, and like all the like the lighting and his use of shadows and all this cool like just cool stuff, man. That
Sure.
scene in Psycho where the guy's like walking up the stairs and like oh my
Oh,
goodness,
yeah.
oh man, Vertigo freaked me out as a kid. I watched that way too young. That was like a weird. Man, my stomach was all queasy. I felt weird. It was
Was
weird,
it was
man. I was
the ending
oh,
freaked you out, or was it the dream
man,
sequence?
the whole movie, man. He's like walking
Yeah.
down hall. The whole thing was like I don't think I think I might have been like 7 or something. It was just on the TV, and I'm trying to watch it and comprehend it
Oh,
as a
wow.
young man. It was just weird.
That was a very weird movie, but
My parents had
shockingly
Hitchcock on all
really
the
good.
time. Yeah,
Really?
yeah. This is like Hitchcock's part responsible for my love of '80s detective television shows. We had just murder
Yeah.
constantly in the house when I was a boy. So we had
That makes
Hitchcock,
sense.
and then it
Makes
was
sense.
like that just lended itself right into Murder She Wrote and Remington Steele and Moonlighting and whatever.
Your family
So
loves Murder She Wrote. I know that's totally like a side topic, but your
it
family
does.
like
Yeah, it's just
loves Murder She
a
Bro, have
Mount
you actually
Rushmore
sat
of
down and
television
watched it?
detectives. Good stuff.
Because I've sat down and watched Murder She Wrote, and I have to admit, it's true. It's really, really good.
Wrote.
Good. And we can thank Hitchcock for that.
Mhm.
All right, so we have our last one spot left. Boy, I wish there was an extra head on Mount Rushmore because now I think we all agreed pretty well with those first three.
Yeah,
But now
yeah,
we're
yeah.
battling for that last spot.
I'm gonna go ahead and say this. Like, it would be difficult for me to like we've discussed Christopher Nolan, and I don't think defending him to put him on there would be correct. And I don't think that like Clint Eastwood eclipses Hitchcock. So I am not going to argue for either of those to be on there over Hitchcock.
I think that there could be a case though for Kubrick.
Yeah, Kubrick is the like the was a hard one. I had him on my list,
Mm-hmm.
and I subbed him out for Lynch because I just I'll be honest, that was really a preference choice. I know you love Kubrick, and I like some of his movies, but man, Lynch was the first guy that ever made the first time I ever watched movies, and I thought I want to know more about the director. And like I read a
Huh.
biography about David Lynch after that because like his I found his storytelling style so interesting. I was like, this guy probably is really interesting. I want to know more about this guy's weird. I like him. I want to have coffee with him,
Very
and
weird.
I just I want to know more. I want inside his brain.
What was
Uh,
the movie that made you think that, Charlie? Do you remember?
about Lynch.
Yeah.
Uh, it started with a VHS copy that my older sister had of the TV show Twin Peaks,
Okay.
and I never
Makes
watched.
sense.
I didn't watch Twin Peaks when it was on. I was too young, but so I watched through the TV show, and I was like, this is great. And then I'm like, wait, this guy makes movies, and it was Blue Velvet was like the movie, and it was like, oh my god, like this is dark and horrifying and amazing and beautiful, and that kind of spawned it. Dylan got me the Eraserhead DVD. Man, that is a that's a ride. Uh, that is one to watch either fully sober
Oh,
or
wow.
completely not sober. Well, you got to go to one extreme end of the spectrum and
Yeah.
watch that. You do
Yeah.
not want to be anywhere in between. Don't be tired. It's just too scary and
No,
too weird. The
don't
visuals
try to.
are
Yeah, like if you like start to nod off, that's a terrible movie to nod off to. And that's exactly the first time we watched it. At least that's exactly
yeah,
what happened.
we
I
were
was like,
so
oh no,
tired.
no, 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 no. I was like, why did we do
It was
this? Why did we
like
do
3 in
this?
the morning or 2 in the morning because somebody put it on. This would be great.
Oh
Like,
man.
oh my gosh. I thought it was a silent film for the first 20 minutes.
Well, you guys love Kubrick. Let's talk Kubrick.
Okay, yeah, Kubrick is great. Oh, I love Doctor Strangelove.
Doctor Strangelove,
That is unbelievable.
is
That's probably my favorite Kubrick movie. I could throw that on at any
so
point. I
good.
love it. Yeah,
I
he should have
think,
done more comedies.
right? I think I wrote a research paper on. I think I wrote one on Doctor Strangelove. I know I wrote one on The Shining,
Yeah,
and I
That's great. That's great.
jeez.
I don't remember what else. I'm pretty sure it was those two at least though. But yeah, it's
I
I
have to
mean,
I have to say a lot of people didn't care for him casting Jack Nicholson or the changes he made to the Shining book. I mean, I'll admit, I watched the movie first and I completely loved it, even though it scared me to pieces.
sure.
And I read the book afterwards and I love that too. But if I had to choose, I'm going with the movie because of what he had done and Jack Nicholson performance. But I mean, like the way he does that, it is so creepy, so scary. It's unbelievable.
I mean, the way he would even just like put
Unbelievable.
shots together where you could like in The Shining, for example, where you're going through uh you're following the person and like the layout like doesn't make sense. And you're like
Yes.
there with the turns that they made, there shouldn't be a window right there. And just the way that like that
Hmm.
th- just the way that he like thought of stuff like that. And it's like, wait a second, you know. So I think
He,
the Shining is a really good example.
yeah.
2001, like 2001 is just something that stands out to me so much as just this movie that I remember just seeing and like not understanding. It's sort of like how I watch Christopher Nolan movies now, where I'm like, I love it, but it's making my brain hurt. And like I'm kind of following but what's happening, but I think I need to watch this again, like immediately after, because I need to try
Wait,
to figure out
really?
what's happening.
What movie was this you watched again? Because like that certainly wasn't
I
Clockwork
didn't
Orange, and
actually,
I
but
did not want to watch The Shining right after I saw it
no,
again.
2001, Space Odyssey.
Oh yeah,
One more time. One more
2001.
time.
Um, but that's how I feel with like Christopher Nolan movies, right? Is like I feel like I want
Yeah.
to immediately watch it again because now I've understood a lot of these things that were played out over 2+ hours.
I felt that
Um,
way when I saw Memento and Inception. Those two, I was like, I got to watch this right away because that was the thing with Kubrick though is it's really funny because there were mistakes that had happened, or maybe they were, and people still are like, I think he did that on purpose. He's so exacting. He must have
yeah,
done that on purpose. There's no way that this was just a mistake. Whereas like Martin Scorsese, he has a scene and it's chock full of mistakes, but somehow that became his style, where like the cutting doesn't exactly line right up and you're like, oh well, Scorsese must have done that on purpose, or he just didn't care, or he had to feel with it. But I mean, but Kubrick was so exact. They were like, no, he those knives were facing the other way in the last shot. He did that for a reason. It's clearly because they faked the space shuttle landing. All these kinds of things. And he's like, I'm just a filmmaker, folks. And they're like, no, no, no. It's you're saying something with this, something way past it. And he's like, it's just a sweater that the kid's wearing. No, 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 no. All
and
sorts
That's
of
great.
like the things.
and Kubrick made movies for a long time.
Yeah.
I mean, even
Well,
you go
he
back to
did.
like he did what?
Well, I mean, look, he made a lot of movies over a long period of time, but he
Yes.
also only made 16 movies.
Yeah, he took his
So,
time with those movies.
I mean, it was Eyes Wide Shut was 99, and his
Ah,
first one was like uh, non-short was Fear and Desire in 52. I mean, that's a long time, but that's not a lot of movies.
Yeah.
Um,
Hitchcock,
and
on the
that
other hand.
almost
and that
50
this, yeah,
years of movies.
I know, but like, what is that like? You do the math on that though. 16 movies over 50 years.
Oh, jeez, that's. Hmm, I can't do the
Whereas
math
like
on.
Hitchcock over a 45-year period did like 69 movies
Yeah,
Nice.
for
yeah,
reference.
he continually was doing them. That
Uh,
was so cool.
now this like for like Hitchcock versus if we're just doing like Hitchcock versus Kubrick, which I don't think we have to do because there's other directors we can compare it to as well. Um, but like this stylistically, it's hard to argue that I mean Kubrick's like style wise, like the the visuals.
Mm,
I mean, he was like a master of style, like just
hmm.
like
Sure.
incredible. The 2001, like there's just shots that like You're like, it's like you watch that movie and you go like, okay, yeah, they're gonna teach us in film school. Okay, like this is like, all right, I get it. Like they're gonna show this like over and over again, and people are gonna love this. But if you're just talking like quality and quantity, then I think he like loses out to everyone that we have on this list because he just didn't make as much stuff. He made less than half of the next lowest filmmaker on this list, which is Kurosawa, has like 33 director credits or something like. And that's the next lowest on this current Mount Rushmore. So I don't know how
Mm.
to balance that. I kind of pre-disqualified David Lynch because I felt like yeah, he's really got like 10, and that's if you're being generous and saying Dune was a good movie, which I love David Lynch, but his
So
Dune
weird.
was a mess.
So weird.
Even for me, that was a bridge too far. But so I like nine movies. I don't know. Um, but like the influence that he had on other filmmakers is undeniable as well. So
Mm.
uh, it's hard. This is a hard one for me. It's a hard one.
Yeah.
I don't know if you're telling me that he's got to go on the list, then I might say, well, okay, then can we put Hitchcock over Spielberg or Scorsese, and then I would probably try to I'm going to try to backdoor Hitchcock in there somewhere. Is I guess all I'm
I
saying.
can tell.
No,
Ah,
I mean, I've got to admit, like, you kind of convinced me of Hitchcock over Kubrick. But now
what?
the real question is, yeah, he's convinced me that with Hitchcock over Kubrick. Just, I mean, with the amount of movies alone.
Sheer volume and the fact that we could do a top 10 Hitchcock list and that it would be hard to narrow it down to 10 is a testament to like
Yes.
not just the quantity but the quality of his work. Like it would be like Strangers on a Train and stuff like that. The stuff that gets used over and over again. These like there's
Hmm.
like Throw Mama from the Train wouldn't exist without that
Yeah.
movie, Brody.
Yeah.
That's Billy Crystal right there, baby. Come on.
That's Danny DeVito. Come on.
His movies just keep getting remade and remade in these television
Yeah.
shows and movies.
And we could do a list and there might not be any crossovers either.
It's true.
Yeah, that's true.
Hey, episode idea.
Top 3 Hitchcocks. Okay. I mean, like, it's tough, right? I think my personal feeling is Kubrick over Hitchcock. But there's also not like there's not a reason to not include Hitchcock. Does that
True.
make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like me personally, I'm like, oh yeah, I think Kubrick should make it on to the Mount Rushmore. But it also makes sense to have Hitchcock on the Mount Rushmore of directors. So
This is the quandary we find ourselves in.
I know. And we are going a bit long. This is a longer episode.
Yeah. And there's great directors we haven't even talked about: Ingmar Bergman or
Mm.
Fellini or
Hmm.
Orson Welles or John Ford. I mean, all these tremendous. If we want to get into like the real old school like influence, there's a lot we didn't even cover here. So
Yeah, a lot.
This is probably gonna be a very.
Hmm.
It, I apologize to the cinephiles that are watching this that are like currently enraged at our at our lists. I apologize.
Oh, come on.
Come on.
No,
There's so many good directors.
I think this is a very respectable Mount Rushmore. I mean,
Okay.
I
Oh,
highly agree.
you put Hitchcock on. Oh wow, look at that. That's
I did.
beautiful. I
I
do
did.
love that. Look at his profile. It was meant to be.
It's
It does
beautiful.
fit pretty perfectly. And so like me personally, I'd probably put Kubrick over Scorsese. But
I'm willing to make that concession just so it doesn't feel like I bullied you guys into taking all 4 of mine.
No, because
Yeah,
Scorsese
well,
showed up on 3 out of the 4 lists.
I love
Kubrick only wound
Scorsese,
up
man.
on 2.
I love Scorsese too. I don't know if you could put Kubrick over Scorsese. I mean, Scorsese also has the influence, and he's got a lot more movies than
It's true.
Sure.
Kubrick. I mean, he's really influential. Yeah, I would have a problem taking it, and I am really kind of disgusted with how he's just being an old fogey. But I'd still his directing is just undeniable.
Sure.
How has he and Eugene Levy never done like a buddy comedy together? I feel like there's something there.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of a comedy that he did.
King of Comedy.
But is Wolf of Wall Street funny to
Oh
you?
yeah, that's pretty
I
funny.
never
That's
saw
counts, right?
Wolf of Wall Street.
really funny.
I never
You
saw
didn't see it? It's pretty good. It's shockingly good. I mean, my mother watched that, and I'm like, Mom, what?
Scorsese isn't, when I see like, oh, it's a Scorsese movie, I'm not immediately like, oh my goodness, I need to see that.
You didn't see The Wolf of Wall Street, though. That's a really good movie, bro. It's really funny. It's got DiCaprio in it. Like, I'm not saying every single movie he's made is gold, but a lot of the movies he's made are really gold and diamonds here.
It's fine.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll seek it out. We'll see.
So
got other things to watch.
Preposterous is what it is. Preposterous.
I've got all of Kurosawa movies to watch. Get off
You
my
have
back.
put them on a watch list. You haven't watched any of them. You watch one of them and then come and tell me this. Put them on a watch list. That's great, bro. I've got all of the, Peter Jackson's on a watch list. I haven't watched. You want to see? I want to watch 3 days it takes to watch King Kong. Nope.
I liked King Kong.
Look,
I liked it too.
And bro, and that's okay. Like, you don't have to get excited about a Scorsese movie to like to feel like it's good. Like, you can say like, oh, okay, I recognize that the Beatles are a great band, and that doesn't mean that I have to like go out and listen to the Beatles. Like, I can just recognize that they had a great place in musical history. They came in at the right time. They have an incredible, huge catalog of music that people seem to really enjoy. Good on you. Go listen to it. I'm gonna go listen to what do you like, Starfield, whatever your band is, and that's fine.
Starset, baby.
And that's okay. You have your own if this was a personalized Mount Rushmore, maybe that'd be a fun episode too, like a personalized Mount Rushmore. The 4 directors that are the most responsible for you loving movies, or something like that. That might be kind of fun to do as well. Like your heart directors.
But you do have to go out and watch more Scorsese and Kurosawa movies, bro. Your watch list is great, but you got to use that watch list, or it doesn't make any sense.
You can watch it for the art, man, for the content. We should have an episode where we just watch Brody watch a 3-hour Scorsese film.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah, commentary.
I don't have time.
You cannot complain about long movies and then have Peter Jackson on your list with the Lord of the Rings films and sit here and talk about, oh, that's too long to watch Goodfellas. I don't know. Let me go put on the extended cut 4.5-hour Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings movie.
I do love
I'll see you in 3 days when I finish.
I do love
that. 3 days.
No, I'm good with this Mount Rushmore. I'm good with it. I got Spielberg on there. Spielberg was the only one of mine that made it on there, but I also recognize that these guys were hugely influential. So I get it. I also figured it would be as much. I'm probably more of the modern watcher than you guys.
Yeah. Hey,
I know I'm the youngest. So I'm so much younger than you guys. So that's what makes it.
Yeah, you got that extra couple of years right there, really seasoned in. I will say, like, James Cameron is awesome. I wish we
didn't even talk about James Cameron.
I wish that he didn't have such long gaps in his movie making, because it's like such a bummer. Like, it just has these, like, it goes from like 96 or 97 or something to like 2006 is his next film, and then he doesn't make anything again until like 2022 or whatever it was.
He was making documentaries.
I don't understand exactly what happened to his writing. Like, he wrote like The Terminator and Terminator 2. He wrote True Lies. It's got good witty dialogue. And then it starts to slip off with Titanic, where he's like, let's not talk about the dialogue. Let's like look at the Titanic in like for real, which is great. But what happened to the dialogue? And then you've got Avatar, which has a ridiculous story. It's in no way innovative. Like, the story isn't, the dialogue isn't, the acting isn't, none of it is. I mean, its visuals are, and that's great. But if he had included all of the stuff from before, like, I don't understand why he stopped doing that. His writing was really good. And he let it go, bro. Like, I was like thinking to myself, oh, James Cameron. And I'm like, what happened? And Charlie is completely correct with how his output of movies like stopped. Sure. And it makes sense. And it makes sense because he really did innovate technology. But hey,
absolutely.
Yeah, it went 97 to 2009. There's that gap, and then it went from 2009 to 2022. Wow. So one movie between 97 and 2022, and it was Avatar. And then now all he's going to make from now on are Avatar movies.
He's got to invent the new technology.
3 more. That's all. So it's kind of a bummer because, man, how was Aliens and
Aliens. Terminator 2. I mean, Terminator 2 is
so good. Like, what a shame. Like, I wish we had that kind. I wish he'd done Aliens 3, because, man, we've talked about that. That was but
all right. Well, this wound up being being a bit longer episode, but this was fun. It, it's funny how like we started out quick, and like when we started this, I was like, shoot, this is gonna be like a 10-minute episode. And here we go. We're 55 minutes in, but that's okay. All right. Do you guys have anything else to add to this?
Yeah.
What?
No, take us to the wrap screen. Look, these are the fun conversations because there's not really a right answer. Let us know your Mount Rushmore. We'd love to hear your top 4 directors of all time, and your criteria could be different than ours. And if you want to hear a modern or any of those other episode ideas that we launched tonight, make sure you let us know below. But if nothing else, check out some other of our videos because after all, we are on the Mount Rushmore of your favorite podcast hosts, and Brody's beard is on the Mount Rushmore of beard. So hit that like and subscribe below it, and we'll see you next time.
Bye. My beard has its own slot on the mountain.